Why you can't stop worrying about losing things. Epictetus had the answer 2,000 years ago. Here's a picture. You're lying awake at 2 a.m. staring at the ceiling, replaying a conversation from 6 hours ago. Something your partner said, something your boss didn't say. Your chest feels tight, your mind won't stop spinning. And the worst part, you know this feeling. You've been here before. Different night, different worry, same suffocating grip. That tightness has a name. It's clinging. Clinging to what someone thinks of you. Clinging to a relationship you're terrified of losing. Clinging to the way things were supposed to turn out. And it is quietly running your life. Now, roughly 2,000 years ago, a man who was born into slavery, whose leg was deliberately broken by his owner, who was eventually exiled from the only city he knew, figured out something that most of us still haven't. His name was Epictetus. And I keep coming back to him, not because his life was tidy, but because it wasn't. He had every reason to be destroyed by circumstances. He chose not to be. His core idea sounds almost too simple. Some things are in your control and some things are not. He called it the dichotomy of control. You already sense this on some level. You know you can't force someone to love you. You know you can't guarantee your health or your job or your reputation. But knowing it and living it are two very different things. And that gap between knowing and living is exactly where all the suffering hides. Epictetus didn't just point out the problem. He built an entire framework for how to stop clinging to the things that are slowly draining your peace. Objects you're afraid to lose, opinions that keep you up at night, outcomes you keep trying to force into existence. He addressed all of it, and his approach wasn't about becoming cold or indifferent. There is a crucial difference between letting go and not caring, and it's one that most people miss entirely. In this video, we're going to walk through his philosophy together, not as a history lesson, but as something you can actually use starting tonight. Because that tight feeling in your chest, it doesn't have to live there. Most of what Epictetus taught comes from two texts, the Discourses and the Enchiridion. He never actually wrote them himself. A student of his, named Arian, sat in on his talks, took notes, and preserved every word. What survived is essentially a practical manual for living with less pain and more clarity, written nearly 2,000 years ago, but still sharp enough to cut through the noise of modern life. One idea sits at the center of everything he taught: outside circumstances can only hurt you if you cling to them. That sounds almost too simple, but watch what he does with it. Epictetus once talked about exile. Imagine being ripped from your home, your city, everyone you know, forced out with no say in the matter. Most people would crumble, and he acknowledged that. But he also said something striking: exile doesn't take away your ability to smile. It doesn't erase your capacity for calm. The government that banished you has power over your address, sure. It has zero power over your mood, your dignity, or the quality of your thoughts. The only way exile destroys you is if you decide that exile is the worst thing that could ever happen and then hold on to that belief with both hands. This is where his famous dichotomy of control comes in. He drew a clean line down the middle of human experience. On one side, your opinions, your choices, your desires, your responses. These belong to you completely. On the other side, your body, your property, your reputation, what people say about you, whether you get the promotion or the diagnosis or the invitation. None of that is yours to command. You already know this in your bones. You've watched a friend get everything they wanted and still feel empty. You've seen someone lose almost everything and carry themselves with a kind of quiet grace that made no sense on paper. The difference was never about what happened to them. It was about what they held on to inside. I want to be honest about something here because I think it matters. I've read Epictetus many times over the years, and the part I keep getting wrong, the part I suspect most people get wrong, isn't the theory. The theory is easy to understand. It's the moment when something you actually care about is on the line. When it's not an abstract possession, but your marriage, your career, your child's well-being. In those moments, open hands feel less like wisdom and more like surrender. Epictetus anticipates that resistance. He doesn't tell you the feeling goes away. He tells you that the feeling and the choice to release can coexist and that practicing the release, even imperfectly, changes the weight of the feeling over time. Now, and this part matters. Epictetus was not telling you to go numb. He wasn't saying stop caring about your kids, your career, the people you love. That's the misreading that trips most people up. A Stoic's whole purpose is to live a good moral, fully engaged life. You care deeply, you show up, you give your best, but you do all of that without white-knuckling the outcome. Think of it like holding a bird in your open palm. You can feel its warmth, watch it breathe, appreciate every feather. The moment you squeeze your fist shut, you either crush it or it fights to escape. The enjoyment was never in the gripping, it was in the presence. The outside world is beautiful, exciting, full of things worth wanting. A new relationship, a house you've worked years to afford, a job title that finally feels like recognition. These things feel wonderful when they arrive. The problem isn't wanting them. The problem is when your entire sense of peace depends on keeping them, because fortune is the one handing those things out, and fortune doesn't ask permission before taking them back. One phone call, one quarterly report, one conversation you didn't see coming, and the thing you built your happiness on shifts beneath your feet like wet sand. So where does that leave you? Epictetus would say it leaves you in the most powerful position available to any human being. You still have your reasoning. You still have the ability to choose how you respond to whatever lands on your doorstep. That faculty, that inner compass, is the one thing no person, no event, no twist of fate can confiscate. He spent the rest of his teachings showing exactly how to put this into practice, not as abstract theory, but in the specific situations where clinging shows up and quietly poisons your days. There are 3 patterns in particular that trip people up again and again. And the first one cuts closer to the bone than most people are comfortable admitting. Part 1, release your grip on what you love, what you own, and what you command. We attach ourselves to people, to things, to positions of influence. And we do it so naturally, so instinctively, that we barely notice the moment affection quietly hardens into possession. There's a shift that happens almost invisible. You meet someone you enjoy their company, and somewhere along the way, enjoyment turns into need. The warmth you felt in their presence becomes a cold panic at the thought of their absence. A woman named Diane spent 31 years married to her husband, Robert. Good years mostly. When he passed from a sudden heart attack at 63, her grief was enormous and completely human. But what haunted her most wasn't the loss itself. It was the 5 years before his death that she'd wasted worrying about it. Every time Robert forgot to call when he was late, her stomach dropped. Every routine doctor's visit sent her spiraling for days. She later told her daughter, "I grieved him while he was still sitting across the breakfast table from me." The tragedy wasn't just that Robert died. It was that Diane lost years of joy to an imaginary funeral she kept rehearsing in her head. That rehearsal is what clinging looks like from the inside. You're not enjoying what you have. You're preemptively mourning what you might lose. And the ache of that anticipated loss becomes a permanent resident in your chest, collecting rent every single day. It also changes how you behave toward the people you love. When you're terrified of losing someone, you start gripping harder. You check their phone. You need constant reassurance. You interpret a quiet evening as a sign that something is wrong. A man named Greg, 52, a high school football coach in Ohio, nearly destroyed his second marriage this way. His first wife had left without warning, and the shock of that departure rewired him. With his second wife, Karen, he couldn't let a single disagreement end without resolution. If she needed space after an argument, he'd follow her from room to room, desperate to fix things immediately, because in his mind, unresolved tension meant she was already halfway out the door. Karen loved him. She wasn't leaving. But Greg's clinging made the relationship feel like a cage, and the very thing he feared almost became the thing he created. The same pattern plays out with objects and status, only the disguise is different. You finally get the corner office, the title, the authority you spent a decade chasing, and instead of savoring it, you spend your energy guarding it, watching for threats, wondering who might be angling for your position. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius himself, a Stoic and one of the most powerful men in the ancient world, wrote in his private journal that the imperial purple was really just sheep's wool dipped in shellfish blood. He was reminding himself in the most visceral terms possible that the trappings of power are ordinary materials dressed up in meaning we assign to them. Strip away the story and a throne is just a chair. Power has a particular kind of cruelty baked into it. The more of it you accumulate, the more you need to feel secure. It never reaches a point where you think, enough, I'm satisfied. You see this everywhere, from corporate politics to family dynamics. The parent who can't stop controlling their adult children. The manager who hoards decisions because delegating feels like losing ground. They aren't evil people. They're scared people, scared that releasing their grip means becoming irrelevant. But grip is an illusion. Everything you hold has an expiration date you didn't set and can't extend. Your health, your relationships, your career, your house. Not one of these came with a guarantee of permanence. Fighting that reality is like arm wrestling the tide. You exhaust yourself, and the water goes where it was always going to go. So what did Epictetus actually suggest instead? He used an image that I find myself returning to more than almost anything else I've read. Picture yourself at a large dinner table. Platters are being passed around one after another. Some reach you, some don't. Some linger in front of you. Others move on before you've had your fill. In the Enchiridion, he wrote, "Put out your hand, take your share with moderation, and when it passes, let it go. Don't lunge across the table. Don't grab the platter and refuse to release it. Don't sit there fuming because the roast went the other direction. You receive what comes, appreciate it while it's in front of you, and let it continue on its way. Children, careers, friendships, money, recognition, all of it is moving around the table. Your only job is to participate gracefully." Epictetus pushed this even further with an idea that might sting a little at first. He said we should stop using the word lost altogether. When your circumstances change, when something precious is taken, don't say, "I have lost it." Say, "I have returned it." Your home was taken, returned. A loved one has died, returned. It sounds severe, maybe even cold, until you consider the logic underneath. Think about a hotel room. You check in on a Tuesday, and for a few nights, it's yours. You sleep in the bed, hang your coat in the closet, set your phone on the nightstand. But you never confuse that room with your home. You know from the moment you walk in that checkout is coming. So you enjoy the stay without the anxiety of eviction because you never pretended you owned the place. That's how Epictetus saw every single thing in your life. Your children are not your possessions. Your spouse is not your property. Your savings account is not a permanent fixture. You are borrowing all of it, every relationship, every object, every title, for an unspecified length of time. And the borrower who remembers their borrowing sleeps far more peacefully than the one who's convinced they own what was only ever on loan. You've probably already experienced moments like this without naming them. A vacation that ended too soon but left you grateful instead of bitter. A friendship that faded with distance but still warms you when you think of it. In those moments, you were doing exactly what Epictetus described. You were present without possessing. You were loving without gripping. The challenge is doing that consistently, especially with the things that matter most. And that challenge gets harder in the next pattern because it targets something even more invisible than the things you can hold in your hands. Part 2. Let go of your need for other people's approval. Nobody has ever actually died from being disliked. Sit with that for a second because your nervous system doesn't seem to believe it. Here's what I've noticed, and maybe you've noticed this too. The people whose opinions haunt us most are rarely the people we respect most. It's often a coworker we barely know, a distant relative at a family dinner, a stranger in a comment section, someone whose judgment we wouldn't trust with a restaurant recommendation, yet we hand them the keys to our peace of mind for days at a time. That's the part Epictetus found almost absurd. Not that we care what others think caring is human and connection matters, but that we consistently let the least informed opinions about us carry the most weight. Think about the last time you said yes to something you wanted to say no to. Maybe it was a dinner with people whose company drains you. Maybe it was volunteering for a committee you have zero interest in. Maybe it was laughing at a joke that wasn't funny, nodding along with an opinion you disagreed with, or spending 20 minutes crafting a text message so it would land just right with someone whose approval you needed, but whose respect you weren't sure you even wanted. Each of those moments costs something, not money, something quieter, a small slice of the person you actually are, traded for a version of yourself that's easier for other people to digest. Do that enough times over enough years, and one morning you wake up and realize you've been living inside a costume so long you've forgotten what your own skin feels like. Epictetus saw this pattern with devastating clarity. In the Enchiridion, he described the experience of not being invited to someone's gathering. Most people would feel stung by that exclusion, and he understood why. But he pointed out something. Most people overlook an invitation is not free. You purchase it with praise, with attendance, with the energy required to tolerate behavior you wouldn't normally tolerate. If you haven't been willing to invest those things, then the absence of an invitation isn't a snub. It's a transaction you chose not to make. And what you received instead is something genuinely valuable, the freedom of not having to perform warmth you didn't feel. But here's where most people push back. They'll say, fine, but what about the situations where being liked actually matters? Getting hired, making friends, finding a partner. And those are fair points. Epictetus wasn't oblivious to the practical benefits of being well regarded. He understood that likability opens doors, that reputation carries weight. He simply refused to let those benefits sit on the throne. The throne, in his view, belongs to your inner steadiness, the part of you that doesn't flinch every time someone raises an eyebrow. Because when approval becomes the thing you organize your life around, the math starts working against you. You can't control what anyone thinks. You never could. You can show up with your best work, your kindest intentions, your most genuine effort, and someone will still misread you, dismiss you, or decide they don't like the sound of your voice. If your peace depends on a favorable verdict from every jury you encounter, you will spend your entire life in a courtroom that never adjourns. Epictetus went further than most of us would be comfortable going. He told his students that they must be willing to be laughed at, ridiculed, treated as foolish, not because those experiences are pleasant, but because fearing them hands your freedom to whoever is willing to mock you. One comment, sometimes from someone you barely know, can lodge itself inside your skull and play on repeat for days. You lose sleep over words that the person who said them has already forgotten. He even offered a response for when someone speaks badly about you. Instead of defending yourself, instead of building a case for why they're wrong, he suggested something like, "He clearly doesn't know about my other faults, otherwise he wouldn't have stopped at just those." There's a quiet, almost unshakable confidence buried in that response. It doesn't beg for correction. It doesn't seek validation. It simply refuses to treat the insult as something requiring a defense, because defending yourself against every criticism is its own kind of prison. Epictetus located the root of this exhaustion in one of his most precise observations. He wrote that it is not the person who insults you who truly disturbs you, it is your own judgment that such things are insulting. Read that carefully. The insult itself is just air shaped into sound. Someone's disapproval is just a thought inside their head that you can't see, can't touch, and can't alter. The only place it becomes painful is inside your own mind. When you pick it up, turn it over, examine it from every angle, and decide it means something about who you are. Every time someone's words get under your skin, you have a real choice. You can pick up the stone they threw and carry it in your pocket all day, reaching in to feel its sharp edges every few minutes. Or you can notice it hit the ground near your feet, look at it for a moment, and walk on. The stone doesn't change. Your decision about whether to carry it does. Now think about how much energy you've spent over the years managing perceptions, the careful wording of emails, the strategic silence in meetings when you had something to say but weren't sure it would be well received, the friendships you maintained long past their natural end because closing them might make you look disloyal, the opinions you swallowed, the boundaries you didn't set, all of it in service of one goal, making sure the people around you kept thinking of you the way you needed them to. And what did it buy you? Not tranquility. Definitely not that. Because the person chasing approval never catches it, not permanently. There's always another audience, another set of expectations, Another performance review, another conversation where you wonder whether you came across. Okay, the treadmill doesn't have a finish line. You can run harder, be more agreeable, trim more of yourself away, and the hunger just gets sharper. This is the tool that Epictetus kept circling back to, and it's the one most people never learn to use. You have the ability to form opinions about opinions. Someone calls you a fool. That's their opinion. Whether you carry that label into your week, letting it color every interaction and erode your confidence, or whether you let it dissolve by morning like fog off a lake, that's your opinion about their opinion. And only the second one actually touches your life. None of this means shutting your ears entirely. Feedback from people who genuinely care about your well-being, who have earned your trust through years of honest presence. That kind of input has real value. The distinction Epictetus is drawing is between counsel that serves your growth and applause that merely soothes your anxiety, one you seek out deliberately with gratitude. The other you chase reflexively without ever stopping to ask why. One makes you better, the other just makes you quieter and smaller. At the end of all this, the opinions of others sit firmly outside your jurisdiction. You will never govern what someone thinks of you. But the weight you assign those opinions, the space you rent them inside your mind, the hours you allow them to occupy your evenings, that territory belongs to you, and only you get to decide who moves in. And yet, opinions, as draining as they are still, aren't the hardest thing to release. The third pattern runs deeper than both of the others combined because it hides in something you can't see, can't touch, and probably never even recognized as the source of your suffering. Part 3. Stop clinging to how things should be. Every morning, without realizing it, you write a script for the day. The meeting will go smoothly. Your partner will be in a good mood. Traffic will cooperate. Your kids will call back. The project will land the way you envisioned it. None of these expectations are spoken aloud. Most of them never even reach conscious thought, but they're running constantly, like software in the background, generating a quiet, detailed blueprint of how the next 12 hours are supposed to unfold. And then the day actually happens. The meeting derails because someone brings up an issue no one anticipated. Your partner snaps at you over something trivial. Traffic turns a 30-minute commute into an hour of white-knuckled frustration. Your adult son doesn't return your call for the third day in a row. The project gets shelved by a decision maker who never even read your proposal. Each of these moments on its own is manageable, but stacked against the script you were silently carrying, each one feels like a small betrayal, not by the people involved, by the gap between what you expected and what arrived. That gap is where most of your daily suffering actually lives. Not in the events themselves, but in the distance between the world as it is and the world as you insisted it should be. Epictetus understood this with a kind of surgical precision. He talked about how a person relates to someone they depend on, the expectation of reliability, consistency, obedience to the plan you made in your head. But he asked a question that flips the whole dynamic. What matters more to you, that the other person never makes a mistake, or that you remain at peace regardless of whether they do? You can't have both. If your tranquility depends on someone else's perfect behavior, you've given that person a power over you that they never asked for and probably don't even know they have. Replace that dynamic with anything in your life. Your spouse, your teenager, your business partner, your body, the economy, the weather on the day of your daughter's outdoor wedding. The moment you require any of these to perform according to your internal script, you've made your emotional state a hostage to forces that don't answer to you. And this scales all the way up to the beliefs that shape how you think the world should operate. Maybe you believe that hard work should always be rewarded, that honesty should be met with honesty, that if you treat people with decency, they owe you the same in return. These feel like reasonable expectations. They sound like fairness. But Epictetus would gently point out that they're not descriptions of reality. They're demands you're placing on a universe that never agreed to your terms. Hard work sometimes gets overlooked. Honest people sometimes get lied to. Not always, not even most of the time, but often enough to shatter the contract you thought you had with life. When that contract breaks, and it will, The clinging is what turns disappointment into despair. Disappointment says, that didn't go the way I hoped. Despair says, that wasn't supposed to happen. Something is fundamentally wrong. The first is a feeling that passes. The second is a worldview that poisons everything it touches. Epictetus addressed this with a piece of guidance that sounds deceptively simple, but was forged in genuine suffering. In the Enchiridion, he wrote, "Do not seek to have events happen as you want them to. Instead, want them to happen as they do, and your life will go well." He wasn't writing this from a comfortable study. He was a formerly enslaved man whose body bore permanent damage from the cruelties of his owner. His leg had been deliberately injured, leaving him with a limp he carried for the rest of his life. This was not a philosopher who avoided suffering and then wrote cheerfully about acceptance from a safe distance. He lived inside the very conditions he was describing, and his conclusion forged in that experience was this: demanding life to match your expectations is the single most reliable source of unnecessary pain available to a human being. Does that mean you should stop trying to improve things, stop working toward goals, stop hoping for better outcomes? Not even close. Epictetus never said, don't act. He said, don't chain your inner stability to the results of your actions. You can work toward a promotion without needing the promotion to feel whole. You can invest in a relationship without requiring it to last forever as proof that you're worthy of love. You can raise your children with everything you have without insisting they turn into the exact adults you pictured when they were small. The effort is yours. The outcome belongs to the world. Think of planting a garden. You choose the seeds, prepare the soil, water consistently, pull weeds when you see them. That's your domain. Whether it rains enough, whether an early frost arrives, whether a neighbor's dog digs up your tomatoes, at 3 a.m., none of that answers to your effort. A gardener who ties their sense of self-worth to the harvest will be devastated every time nature refuses to cooperate. A gardener who finds meaning in the tending itself will work just as hard and sleep far better at night. This same logic applies to every person in your orbit. You cannot make your spouse more attentive. You cannot make your coworker less irritating. You cannot make your aging parent accept help gracefully. You can be kinder yourself. You can model patience. You can choose to respond rather than react when someone pushes a button you didn't know you had. Others may notice and follow your example. They may not. That part was never in your hands. And the sooner you stop trying to manage outcomes by managing people, the sooner you get your energy back for the things that actually belong to you. There's a paradox hidden in all of this that I think is worth naming directly. The tighter you grip an outcome, the less capable you usually become of achieving it. The job candidate who desperately needs the offer comes across as desperate. The person who grips a relationship out of fear of losing it accelerates the very distance they're trying to close. The executive who micromanages every decision because delegation feels like loss ends up with a team that stops thinking for itself. Clinging doesn't protect what you love, it quietly deforms it. Epictetus captured this when he said that we are like actors in a play whose casting has been decided by another. Whether the role is brief or long, whether we play a beggar or a king is not ours to choose. What is ours is how faithfully we perform the part we've been given. You didn't choose to be laid off at 53. You didn't choose for your marriage to fracture. You didn't choose for your body to start failing in the specific ways it has. But every single morning, you choose how you carry those realities forward, with resentment or with resolve, with a clenched jaw or with steady breathing. And this right here is the distinction that was hinted at early in this video, the one most people miss entirely. Letting go does not mean you stop caring. When Epictetus talked about possessions and people, he didn't say abandon them. He said cherish what you've borrowed while it's in your hands, and release it without bitterness when it's time. When he talked about opinions, he didn't say ignore everyone. He said stop letting other people's judgments steer your life. And here, with outcomes and ideals, he isn't saying give up your ambitions. He's saying pour yourself fully into the work, the love, the effort, and then open your hands. Letting go means you finally direct your care toward the things that were always yours to begin with. Your character, your choices, your response to whatever arrives uninvited at your door. Someone can insult you, and you decide what that insult means inside your mind. Someone can take your savings, and you decide whether the loss collapses your spirit or simply passes through it. A person you trusted can betray you, and the depth of that wound is ultimately shaped not by their actions, but by what you do with the pain afterward. The world will keep turning on its own axis, indifferent to your preferences, sending storms without consulting your calendar, and delivering joy on days you least expect it. None of that changes. What changes is the space you create inside yourself to meet all of it. Epictetus spent his entire life practicing what he taught. A man who was once owned by another person, whose body was broken by cruelty, he didn't choose who was eventually exiled from the only city he knew. And through all of it, he held on to the one thing no one could take his freedom to choose how he met each moment. Not with a clenched fist, with open hands. That's not ancient history. That's tonight. That's you lying in bed deciding whether the thing that hurt today gets to follow you into tomorrow. The possessions, the opinions, the outcomes you keep gripping so tightly, they were never what held you together. You always were. Think about the people in your life you most admire for their steadiness, the ones who don't seem rattled when things fall apart, who carry loss without becoming bitter, who disagree without becoming enemies. Almost without exception, those people aren't steadier because life treated them better. They're steadier because somewhere along the way, through experience or philosophy, or simply paying attention, they stopped making their inner state conditional on the outer world. They stopped writing contracts with circumstances, and in that, stopping something settled, not numbness, groundedness, the kind that holds when the ground shakes. Here's the one practice I'd ask you to try this week. It takes 30 seconds. Every morning before you check your phone, write down one thing you've been gripping that was never yours to control. A relationship outcome, a reputation you're managing, a result you've been forcing. Just name it. Then write 3 words underneath, "I release this." Not because the thing stops mattering, but because the grip is the source of the pain, not the thing itself. Do that for 7 mornings and notice what shifts. Loosening that grip isn't something you do once. It's something you practice quietly, imperfectly, one ordinary morning at a time. But every time you choose presence over possession, steadiness over control, you're building something that no circumstance can undo. If this conversation stirred something in you, something worth sitting with, I'd be grateful if you shared it with someone who might need to hear it too. And if you'd like to keep walking this road together, subscribing is the simplest way to make sure we find each other again. Thank you for staying until the end. I'll see you in the next one.